Proud of You is a parenting advice podcast and support group for dads hosted by two goofy dads. They are not pediatricians, nutritionists, OBGYNs, psychologists, nor are they authorities on parenting. They're just two dinguses trying to figure it all out. Their advice should not be taken as expert information. Parenting looks different for everyone, and there's no wrong way to be a dad. Frankly, if you're taking the time to listen to a podcast about it, you're already doing a great job. And these dads are proud of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Welcome back. I am Derek Mata.
And I am Andrew Goody, and we are proud of you. Go ahead.
So this week is about money, because I mean your daughter's too young to actually understand money, and I'm getting to that stage
not
where
too young to cost me a lot of money.
I mean, okay, that's fair. And I've got a 13-year-old in my house who, every 13-year-old looks forward to that. I'm going to be 16. I'm gonna buy a car. Money's got to come from somewhere. So that's what this week's episode's about is money. Have you seen the Mega Millions?
I do not pay attention to the lottery at all, sir.
I don't either, but they sent an email today at work because the work people are always who wins the huge pots. Or
yeah,
so
you get
the TV
40 of your
makes
closest
it.
friends to pool up together and get $1 billion and then share it out.
Yeah,
Smarter than I'll ever be.
But it has not worked. I've been doing that for years now, and I'm still working my same job, not a millionaire. But yeah, $977 million. And I like to sit here and think, what can I do with 977 million? And then like cash option is 460 whatever it is. I'm like,
Yeah, it's
wow, they take a
50%
lot of
of
money. As though $460 million isn't life changing. And remember when we were kids, and I know our kids are probably the same, or your kid will be the same way, when $20 was a lot of money.
Heck yeah, man.
Like, so like with Lucas, we had this thing. Every time you got money, and to put it into perspective here. So we told him, like, hey, we know that you want to save up for a car. This was about a year or two ago. Every bit of money you get, I think it was 10 or 20% away. Like, put that in savings. The rest of it you can do with whatever you want. And he said, I want to do 50%, 50. Okay. So anytime he gets something for his birthday, Christmas, any holiday that his grandparents send him money, 50% of that goes to savings. He has like $150 and he thinks he's going to buy a car. We told him we would match whatever he has because I always liked that concept. He thinks $150 or $300 is going to buy him a car.
Man, he's living in a different economy than the rest of us are. We were just talking. My very first car was $400 and almost running when I bought it for $400.
But I'm wondering, like, as a car guy, like, is it possible to still take him to the junkyard? Like, no, I'm not gonna be like, hey, here's this unreliable piece of shit. But we spent $400.
No, but that's the foundational dad moment, right? Of like, hey, we're gonna get you this unreliable piece of junk, and you and I are gonna work on it together. You and I are gonna rebuild this car and make it a reliable, cool, classic.
I'm all for that. Like just for the sake of, like, I haven't worked on something in years. So like to have that opportunity would be fantastic. And then to do it for a child of mine, like, God, I'd cloud nine. Unfortunately, like, he doesn't share my taste. I mean, I can't say unfortunately, but he does not share my taste in cars. Like, I like unique, I like different. I know unique and different are the same kind of thing. And I like old. Yeah,
Yeah,
my
and
only
Lucas thinks he's
child.
gonna buy a Cybertruck for $300.
If you knew what a Cybertruck was, he thinks he's gonna buy a Corvette for $500. Like, yeah, you can buy the VIN number of a Corvette. That's about all you got. But kind of leads into what we wanted to talk about is working. So our plan was that we live in Arizona. The weeds, we have zero, most yards have xeriscape. Or rocks for those who don't know what xeriscaping is.
Yeah.
Weeds will shoot through that like nobody's business. I have to do my yard. My yard has to be done at least every 2 to 3 weeks.
Yep.
And we're like, Lucas, if you want to start making money, go around to all these other houses that we pass by on our walks and offer your services to them. Say, hey, I will do your yard for $40. And
Yep.
I think it's a fantastic idea because, for one, it teaches them the value of work, it teaches them the value of a dollar, and also self-worth. That was the biggest thing. Is we were leaving your house that one day after we dropped some cookies off, and April goes, Lucas, like, look at this yard right here. I couldn't tell you what yard it was. Like, you can say, hey, I'll do it for $60 because it's still cheaper than what the landscapers will do. And Lucas is like, I would never charge that much money. And we both looked at him like, kid, like, this is your time.
Yeah.
You're not gonna
Well,
charge what you think is valuable to you.
and it's so funny too, thinking about it, like the difference of the mentality that you have as a kid and that you have as an adult is so funny to look at in comparison in hindsight, right? Because I remember growing up, I mean, like I weeded my family's yard because I was a part of the household and I wanted to live there.
So,
But
so we
like
do
when I
Xbox
did,
time. You want to stay
there
up
you
till
go.
midnight playing Xbox? Like, pull the weeds.
There you
But
go.
keep going.
So like, but I would do our neighbor's yard or whatever, and like I got like maybe $5, $10, like, which I mean, we could go in a whole conversation about inflation and what five
Yeah,
bucks was when I was a kid is probably about what he's getting $40 this in this current world. But like uh now I go back and look at it and like especially with the desert landscaping, the nothing but rocks, and there was just a decently sized rainstorm a couple weeks ago, so there's a bunch of little tiny weeds popping up all over, right?
I know.
It's probably gonna take him 4 hours to do somebody's yard. So at $40, you're talking about $10 an hour. That's not even a minimum wage. Now, admittedly, he's not of legal working age, so $40 is still, big to him. But like, yeah, you're 100% right. That learning what your worth is and being willing to set boundaries and say, hey, if you don't want me to do this for $60, that's fine. I'll go do somebody else's yard.
Yeah, and it's and I don't break down the, hey, it takes you this long, because we all work for money. We all want things that we have to buy. I bet you. So when he does our yard, it does take hours. And I'm like, kid, the longer you take, the less Xbox time you get. Like, as soon as you're done, you can go play. We're still trying to teach that concept. So trying to throw money into it is going to be a little confusing. Um, but I was like, there's a chance that you can make more money than I do. Just hit a couple yards every single day, because those weeds aren't going to stop growing at
No.
all. Like, there's nothing that's going to keep them from going. But it's but I had the conversation with you because I made the joke. It's like, hey, do you need your weeds pulled? Like, obviously I know you don't. Like, you're a capable man, but you made a comment about child labor. So like, what are your thoughts on this? Because obviously, like, I'm pro, like, get out and work, understand how the world works.
To be clear, my joke about it being child labor was a polite way of saying, no, I'm not going to pay your
No,
kid
no,
to
no,
weed my
no, no,
yard.
no, no. I
Like,
I get this, but I'm just
it
saying, like,
is,
I'm wondering about what your thought is versus mine,
yeah.
because we
So
we think very differently.
yeah. So it is complicated, right? Because on the one hand, I am all about like teaching kids work ethic and teaching kids the value of getting out and using their hands and especially like without going down a whole rabbit hole of what the economy is. Like blue collar work is hugely valuable, right? Like
Yes,
getting
it is.
getting it with Lucas by the time Lucas is of college age, uh an HVAC certification pays better than a bachelor's degree these days. So like, what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to be a blue collar worker for six figures, or do you want to go get a library sciences degree and collect unemployment? Like,
And that's
you know,
that is something that we
so
really push in our household. It's like, don't underestimate trades, like
yeah,
because for some reason, and I think it started with our parents' generation, it kind of trickled down to ours, is you look down on those blue collar workers, but like those blue collar workers, like they work fucking hard, but I feel like they're happier than most college graduates. Like,
well, and just at the end of the day, man, the like because of the way that our parents' generation encouraged everybody, every millennial basically has a bachelor's degree, right? Like it's the equivalent of a high school diploma,
I mean,
which
I
means
don't
that
have
having
one.
it, which means that having it doesn't make you special anymore.
No.
And so if you need a master's degree to get a job that's better than you could get if you have a high school diploma, or you can go to a 2 year trade school and be making like six figures within a couple years, why not go be a tradesman, right? Like people are, and without sounding like the boomer who's saying millennials are scared of hard work, like people don't like to work hard. People don't like
No, they
to
don't.
get sweaty and work with their hands. And you know, it takes a special kind of person. Like you and I both work in the supply chain transportation industry. And there's a running theme that like if you have a CDL, if you have a commercial driver's license, you have a job for life as long as you don't do drugs so that you can pass a drug screening and you don't get into a car accident so that you still have a clean driving record. If you have a commercial driver's license, you have a job tomorrow, no
Yeah.
matter where, no matter when, no matter what the economy is doing. We always need truck drivers. Every company needs truck drivers. Every construction crew needs construction workers. You get a specialty like an electrician's certificate so that you're a journeyman electrician or a carpenter or anything. You're immediately going to be making killer money. I know people who are welding for more money than my friends who have doctorates that are actual like performing medical doctors. And my
Really.
friends who are welding are making more money annually than them. It's insane. And so raising your kid to not be afraid of hard work, to not be afraid of getting out and working with his hands, in a world that is so dominated by tech jobs and the idea that you can be an influencer and make $1 million making dumb YouTube videos. Um,
Yeah,
that's a
that's another fight that I have with both of my 13-year-olds is, yeah, it's what are you going to do to stand out in the world that everybody wants to be a creator, everybody wants to be an influencer, like, but you know what everybody needs at the end of the day? AC in their house and their lights on. And we don't push trade school, but we let them know the realities of the world.
Yeah, you know what everybody needs to pay rent.
Yeah, that too. Like,
Like how is your YouTube channel? And I mean, we say this from the pulpit of a podcast, like but again, we're not making a dime off this.
no, we're not. Like,
It's it's a hobby at the end of the day, and there's something to be said for if you can make your hobby work for you. Great. And for some people, I'm sure that's good. There's this idea that people always say if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, right? And
and,
I
and I'm and I'm starting to, not to cut you off, I'm starting to learn to hate that phrase, and I think it because I think about it a lot. It's I think it works better is find something you love and get paid for it.
so I personally I reverse that saying. Love what you do, and you'll never work a day in your life. I can't do what I love. I have so many hobbies that I could monetize. I cook, I bartend, I play D&D, which is weirdly lucrative these days. Like all kinds of stuff. And every time I've tried to do something that I'm passionate about as a job, I start hating that fucking thing because it's work, right?
Yeah,
Like I
exactly.
love cooking, and if I go and I will go make a 5-star meal for my wife and kid, and we'll have an amazing dinner, and I'll have a great time cooking it. I'll be in the best mood, and it's wonderful. If I worked in a restaurant and cooked for somebody else, I would hate it. I can say
That's
that with confidence because I have, and I did. It sucked. Like
and
bartending was the same way. I was a bartender in college and I hated bartending. I love mixing drinks at home. I love making drinks for my friends. I hated bartending professionally.
I did enjoy you making me some drinks. I'll give you that one. But I'll say like even when I was younger, I want to say I was 18 years old, and I told my stepdad like I wanted to be a mechanic. I wanted to work on cars. I never worked on a thing in my fucking life at that point. I'm 18 years old. Okay. He goes, maybe I wasn't 18. Maybe it was right when I was getting into cars. He goes, if it's a job, you're not gonna want to go home and do your own work, like because it's not fun anymore. And it kind of, hitting on the point that you just made, like it's we all love these things, but we don't want to do it as a job. We just want to monetize what we do, but we
Yeah.
don't want it to be like our soul. I don't even know how to phrase it because like it's all contradictory, but it all ties in together. Like
Well, and it works really well for some people. I am not that
yes,
person, right?
I will say yes. Some people are
Some
are able to do it. I'm like you. I can't do it either.
Yeah. And if you're that person who can take your hobby and turn it into your career, more power to you. I'm so jealous. I wish that I could do that with my hobbies. I have lost hobbies because I tried to make them a job and stopped enjoying them as hobbies.
Yeah.
And it's really tough because you want to do you want to enjoy your work day, right? You're working 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, whatever your life looks like. You don't want to be miserable for that whole time, but it's just so easy for that flip to script to
Flip to
flip, and
flip.
and
Yes.
yeah, it's so easy for that script to flip and it to just become that thing that you're doing because it's your job instead of doing what you love. I think the idea of turning your hobby into a career works really well if you're an artist and you can really make a killing at it, right? If you love acting and you can break through that insane barrier and become a successful actor or actress and make money doing it, I'm sure you'll love what you're doing because that is a very artistic field. If you're a painter and you can make money selling your art, if you're a cosplayer and you can make money going to conventions, like enough to pay your rent and your expenses, like that's awesome. But so many of my hobbies are functional hobbies, right? Cooking, bartending, working on cars. And I guess maybe the problem is that I have blue collar hobbies. Like,
Yeah.
and once you do blue collar work, it kind of sucks.
And I think, tying it back to our children is teaching them that you don't have to just fall into that daily grind. Like find something that you really enjoy doing. And we had that talk with Lucas. I want to say about what is it? Mid-February. Um, like, hey, like you want me to teach like you want me to teach you something because I'm you. Like you want to learn wiring? Cool. Follow me around when I do something in the house, when I do something on the motorcycle, when I do whatever car I have in the driveway. Cool. You want to learn woodworking? I love woodworking. Like, still trying to buy the stuff for it so I can get into it. Like, I will teach you these things. But as you stated, like, kids don't understand hard work anymore. All they see is the ninjas of the world, the Mr. Beasts of the world. No hate to either of those two. Like,
Yeah, no,
they found what worked
and
for them. But
it's great that those guys like you named two huge influencers. It's awesome that those guys are doing what they're doing, and those two specifically seem to be really loving what they're doing and giving back and doing it in the best possible way. Like they are the best kind of influencers, and they are a 0.0001% of all
yes,
the people who have failed trying to do that, right? There are so many people who are trying to break into that space. And uh, I don't want to say that it's easy because being a successful influencer is a ton of work. Like all of the influencers that I know who actually make money doing it work way more hours than I do working a conventional corporate job. because they're super passionate and they have to stand out against the millions of people who are doing it.
But it's also like
Um,
that hard work was instilled into them because I'm trying to tie that back into like
yeah, yeah,
if I let's say I wake up tomorrow, Lucas is 18 years old. Love the kid, doesn't have an ounce of fucking hard work in him right now. Is that my fault? I'd probably say so, like because my wife and I worked very hard in our lives to get where we are. So like we don't want our kids to struggle. At the same time, it's handicapping them at the same time because they don't have to work for anything.
yeah. It's a
Um,
struggle, right? Because we grew up poor, and so we don't want our kids to have the same struggles that we did, but those struggles are what made us successful adults and what got us from poverty to slightly less poverty. Um,
yeah, that's fair.
um, so no, you're 100% right. So I mean, going back to your point about like child labor, right? So I I have really mixed feelings about it now because when I was a kid, I was on that grind, right? I'll mow a lawn, I'll pull weeds, I'll wash a car, whatever for $5 because I mean I was a nerdy little kid, right? Every $5 I got was a pack of Pokemon cards I could go buy. But but like or like when I got older, it was like, oh, I need to get a part-time job because I want to go buy a guitar or a car, or I bought this car and now I need all the parts that it takes to keep this junk bug car that I bought running. Um, and that work ethic was just a grind, right? Constantly. I want to do anything I can for whatever, it doesn't matter. And now from a privileged adult perspective, I take a look back and I'm like, man, your kid's doing yards for $40 an hour when there's a landscaper who's trying to feed his family at a decent living wage. Like your kid's coming in and stealing that guy's job by doing his yard for less than minimum wage because your kid's gonna knock out that 6 hour job for $40, right? Um, and so like there's that struggle that I have where I'm like, yeah, kids should go out and grind and everything. And also like child labor laws exist for a reason. And part of that reason is to protect children, but part of it is to protect jobs of working Americans who need to pay rent. And landscaping is we just talked about blue collar positions, right? Landscaping is a noble
Yeah.
profession. People buy houses based off of their landscaping jobs. Your kids going out there and undercutting those landscapers, where's the capitalist fun in
I mean,
that?
no, yes, that makes sense. Like I cannot argue with that. But like, kid wants a car.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I agree.
so where's the balance there? Like, yeah, because I don't want to take jobs away from the landscaper either, but I also want my kid to understand to be a successful adult, to be able
Well,
to
and
and a successful member of society.
yeah, and it's challenging, right? Because this we won't go down the full path here, but I don't like the oversight, right? I started working when I was 14. Like I worked a job from the time that I was 14, and I don't know. I think that was the legal working age when I started working.
I don't think it
Um,
was because I'm older than you are.
yeah,
I think somebody made a huge exception for
I'm good.
you.
It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But like I started working at 14 because I wanted a car by the time I was 16, right? And like I got $400 when I was 14 so I could get a car so that I could spend 2 years working to earn money to fix it up so that by the time I turned 16 it was drivable and something that I was proud of. Um, I couldn't I genuinely don't know if I could do that in the modern era, right? Like I don't I couldn't get a job I couldn't even get a job as a dishwasher as a 14-year-old today because there are
Mm.
18-year-olds and 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds who are struggling on unemployment to get those dishwashing jobs. Like, it's a wild world that we're living in, and work is such a complicated part of it. I think learning that work ethic early is really important, but the way that you get there is challenging.
Yeah, I mean it's the like you said, the world we live in is fucking way different than what we grew up in. Like and April and I struggle with that constantly. Like we are very boomer parents in the sense of like, you don't need your electronics, you don't need your TV. Go outside and get some fucking, or as the kids say, go touch grass. Like, but like kids these days don't do that. When was the last time you saw kids outside playing?
I mean, like yesterday, because I go to the park with my daughter
Oh,
all the
Jesus
time.
Christ!
But
Of course, of course you do. But
I'm just
like,
saying, kids go outside. Don't be a boomer.
but like, I don't. And yes, obviously, I don't know a whole bunch of kids. So like, you don't have kids knocking on the door anymore. Like, hey, you wanna go play a game of football? You wanna play some soccer? Like, I don't see kids walking around anymore. Like,
Yeah.
so it's
Well, it's a very different world, and that's, I mean, I guess the struggle is how do you adapt to that change, right? Because we can't necessarily raise our kids the way that you and I were raised, if only
but
because Lucas won't get hired as a dishwasher at 14.
well, not only that, but like, because and tying it back to kind of the point I was going to make is kids these days just want to sit inside all day. They want to play the Xbox or PlayStation, the computers, whatever the fuck it is. So the value of hard work isn't there. So when Lucas is, I don't know, legal working age is 16 here in Arizona, like, so when he's 16 and he goes to McDonald's down the street here, and he has no work ethic because he doesn't need to, or he doesn't, like, you see the
He hasn't
struggle
been
here.
shown the example of it, right? I mean, and that's, I'll push back on you saying that all kids want to sit inside and do nothing and play video games. It's easy for sure. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to sit and play Nintendo 64 or Super Nintendo or whatever. But I still got outside. My parents took me out. We went camping, we went hiking, we went on walks. My dad put me to work. I dug ditches, I pulled weeds, I washed cars. I think the perception that kids just want to sit inside is a negative assumption about society, because I sit inside a lot more now than I used to. I watch TV and stream videos on the internet a lot more than I did when I was a kid, because that didn't exist, right? Um, and so I think that that's just a perception that you have to overcome, because there's nothing in the grand scheme of things, nothing has changed, right? There's always a reason to be lazy and a reason to be hardworking. It's just showing your kids what the value of that is.
I guess that's fair. Like, I mean, we don't obviously want to push them too hard because, like any of us, you get pushed too hard, and suddenly you're like, "Wow, this is absolutely terrible. I'm never doing this again in my life." Um, and that's why we wanted to start small at 13. Like, dude, go around and offer your services. Hey, let me pull your weeds for just a couple bucks.
Yeah. Well,
And
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 there's a parenting anxiety, right? Of like, God's forbid your 13-year-old tells your neighbor, "Yeah, I'm out here working because my dad says I have to," and they call CPS, and Lucas tells them, "Yeah, my dad told me I needed to go get a job." Like, like I'm having palpitations thinking about it. I have a 2-year-old. Like,
but like, to be fair, like the flyer I'm not taking any credit for this, that my wife made states that he is doing this to save up for his first car,
there you go.
which we more me than you, I think, in the neighborhood I live in, or section of neighborhood I live in, is more old people, like actual boomers, not Derek boomers. And I think like they would appreciate, like, oh, hey, like, I remember doing this as a kid. I remember my kids doing this when they were kids. So I'm hoping that it really works to his benefit with where we live. Um, and we'll see. Like, we told him the same thing a couple summers ago. Like, go in Georgia, when all the leaves fall, like everybody's leaf or yards are covered in leaves, and the HOA says you cannot have one leaf on the ground. So we told Lucas and Evelyn, go offer your services to everybody in the neighborhood. They never left the driveway. And that sucks. Like, wow, you had a chance to make probably hundreds, if not thousands of dollars during whatever break they were on. I think it was like winter break. And you did nothing.
Yep.
And that hurt me as a father. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, given the opportunity to make a few $1,000s more, you bet your ass I'd fucking take it. But like, I have big boy bills. So
Yeah. Well, it's always a balance, right? Because I and this is something that I haven't obviously had to address because my 2-year-old is not out pulling weeds. Like my 2-year-old is not saving for her first car yet. Um, but like I want to teach my child the value of work. I want to teach my child like the work ethic that I have, and the importance of doing hard work and to not be scared of doing hard work. But I also want my kid to be a kid as long as she possibly can, right? And like I beat up, and you know this because you're one of my friends, I beat my friends up about not taking their PTO and working overtime on a salaried position and all of this shit that you're doing to be a cog in a capitalist machine instead of a human who is out living and breathing and enjoying life, right? So like,
I mean,
man,
I'm guilty of that.
is it a bummer that your kid didn't make a couple $100 during fall break? Sure. Is it pretty cool that your kid had fun riding their bike with their friends and playing games and hanging out for fall break? Absolutely. And so there's a work-life balance there that it's also important to teach your kid like, hey, if Lucas starts getting, yard requests like crazy and people are asking for him to pull their weeds, make sure that he's not overworking himself and make sure that he kind of pulls back and reins that in because there's a very real chance that he could overwork himself and get to a point where he's not enjoying being a kid and he's just pulling weeds 9 to 5, his daily grind, get off
Yeah.
school, go to pull weeds. And like that sucks. Don't let your kid be that either.
Yeah, I mean that's true because like April and I, as you know, are very like all work, no play. Like Disney was the first vacation we had in years. Like because I worked 6 days a week. I
Yeah.
worked that overtime. Like,
But how much better do you feel after that? Like even not looking at like the fun that you had on the vacation and everything, but how like rejuvenated and refreshed and ready to take on the world did you come back from that?
yeah, like it was I definitely feel, I mean, other than my daily tiredness, like, yeah, do I feel like a slightly better person because I took vacation or PTO or whatever? Yes, I'll admit that.
Yeah. So I mean, like, don't discount that when you're looking at Lucas wanting joy and happiness and ease in his life too. Like there should be a an ebb and flow to that. The work is important, but you work to live, you don't live to work, right? That's the
Yeah,
old saying.
that's fair. Like that's, I mean, and I feel like that's a good for people like me, like that's a good takeaway because like I would be like, you have 3 yards to do today, go do them instead of like, I really can't. Like, and understanding that there are some times when we're given projects at work that we just cannot take on and we have to speak up. So like I
Well, and that
that makes
leads
sense.
to an entirely different topic that we'll probably cover in another podcast of the importance of setting boundaries and saying no when your job is asking too much of you and standing up and saying, I need either more money or less work, you decide. Um, because, like you said, personal value, right? I'm worth a certain amount of money. If I'm doing more work than I'm getting paid for, I'm going to say something about it. Um, I am that way because I have learned to be that way, and now I want to teach my kid to have that
Yeah.
respect for herself as well.
Like you definitely want to practice what you preach and not do this, but I'm going to do the complete opposite, which I might be guilty of myself.
For sure. Well, I mean, I think this is a really interesting topic, and I think we could go in depth in a lot of different ways about the pros of work, the cons of work, the pros of play, the cons of play. But I think we've done a really good job of touching over, the overview basis of well, you know, not that we've come to a conclusion by any stretch, but I think we've touched on, kind of what you're feeling, right? In that Lucas needs to go out and pull some weeds.
Yeah, like people need their weeds pulled. Go make that money, kid. We're going to the junkyard next weekend. I love junkyards, by the way. Any excuse to go, I'm fucking there for it.
For sure. Well, thank you for joining us this week. It's always fun. Derek and I don't know what we're doing. We're just two dingus dads trying to figure it all out.
Fair.
Um, Derek is experiencing a lot of this firsthand. I am prepping for when my daughter eventually needs a car and how to tackle that. But we appreciate you spending your time with us. We're so proud of you. You're all such great dads doing the best that you can in this crazy world, in this crazy life that is fatherhood. If you could share this video, like it, comment down below. All of our social medias are linked. If you can just, give us any feedback that you have, what you want to hear about next, what you thought of this episode. If you have recommendations for future episode, we're always open to any feedback, positive or negative. We're at Proud of You on just about every social media you can find us at, or proudofyoudads on gmail.com. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Until next time, I'm Andrew Goody.
And I'm Derek Mata.
And we are proud of you.